Hello! Today I wanted to highlight a video from someone else. This is from Dan, or 507RC. He wanted to recreate a scene from my sim, specifically the opening scene where there's the brick wall and the quad smashes through there. Now, it took him a few goes as he had a bunch of polystyrene boxes which are quite light, and if you pile them up and you've got anything above sort of a breath of wind, then they tend to blow down again. But hands off to Dan. He managed to get them stacked up. He had a couple of really good passes where he smashed through them, and the results look quite similar to what I had in the sim. It sort of smashes and the boxes fall down and it looks pretty good. So well done to him, and of course there's a link in the description so you can check out his video in more detail. However, with all the efforts he made, I feel it's only fair that I make a little bit of a confession and say me flying through the wall wasn't exactly as it should be. To explain further, let's jump into the Unity game engine and go a little bit behind the scenes. So here we are in the Unity editor, and I wanted to say one of the reasons we use a game engine is to take some of the hard work out of things. So Unity here can understand 3D objects. It has a built-in physics system which we can use instead of having to program our own. So we're actually running in this scene at the moment, and so I could go in and say I want to create a 3D object, and it's a cube here, and I can move this cube around, and you see it's got some basic lighting there, but nothing's actually happening to it because it's got no properties. So I could go in and I could give it what's called rigid body physics, and suddenly it falls down again, which is quite handy. And I can do other things, like I can change the physical properties of it. So if I was to say, we'd like to say this is a bouncy brick, we can see what happens when we change it, and we can oh yeah, look, it bounces around. And objects like this have interactions with other things. So again, I could take that up. I could go to my terrain and I could say I want to raise my terrain, let's say here. So if we raise this up, we can again have different interactions with different physical bodies. So if we go to the cube now, I think we're just about over there, and let's change its properties to semi-bouncy, and we let that play, and down it falls. And this is a nice way of being able to shortcut some of what you do. I mean, obviously when making a game you're not just going to have objects and say go, but using code you can interact with these objects, but where I am here in just the editor, I can easily sort of make a couple of copies of this cube, for example, and they all get the same properties. So they all have the physics running on them, the rigid body physics, and they have gravity, which we can change. And if I let that play, boom, down it comes, and you kind of get the idea of what's happening there. So based on this and me playing around, I thought, yeah, it'd be fun to sort of set up a wall or something like that. And so what you're looking at here is some experiments I did. Where are we? Here we are. With some buildings I created, and the reason I've got all these buildings is I kept having to work at them. So if we look, we've got various types of blocks here. These are like 1x1 blocks built on top of one another. I've built into a very high structure. This is a traditional crisscross hatching that you'd get in a regular building. Yeah, and you'd think, oh, that'd be good, because I did have the idea, wouldn't it be good to be able to fly stuff into these? But take a look at what happens when we actually run the simulation. Basically they all fall down. It seems to be that the weight of the physical objects pushing on one another is enough to take it out. Now some of these have fallen at different rates, and that's because I gave different physical properties, trying to figure out what the problem actually was, because at the end of the day I just end up with a pile of blocks here. To be fair, I haven't gone back and looked at this in more detail. I'm sure with changing the physical properties a little bit more and doing other bits and pieces with them, I could probably get them to stand up. But this was a while ago, and this carried forward to my actual running of the opening scene. So this you might recognise as the opening scene. In this bottom window here is the game display. So what we've got here is an actual camera sat down here somewhere looking up. Now, first thing to say is if you look at the front of it, where the textures are all nicely around the blocks, if you look at the back, it doesn't look quite as pretty. The way the textures work is they wrap around all the way. So one side looks great, the other side looks a bit rubbish. And if we run this, now we need to get the right scene. So this is the actual scene where the quad goes through the bricks. And this is the big con, I'm afraid. What I've done here is I've just created this quad. And all I've done is essentially apply a little script to it which says I want to throw this at a certain rate at the wall. So it's not really flying. And if we go ahead and play that through, you will see that the quad just plops down there on the floor and doesn't do anything else, because essentially all we've done is throw it, and that's where it ends up. So this is the scene where the ball just hits the wall here. And here's the big fake. The big fake is, if the ball wasn't there, let's turn it off, what will happen? And the answer is the wall will just fall down. Much like Dan's problem about having the wall actually being up there, I have exactly the same thing. The wall will not stay up by itself. Whether I throw a plane into it, I throw a ball into it or anything, if I leave it 2 seconds, the wall just falls down. I mean, it's certainly more dramatic when you chuck a plane into it and things, but the plane doesn't have to be there for it to fall down. But of course, it looks pretty cool with all the bricks flying out everywhere, but that plane's not doing anything. We're not flying the plane. The plane, again, I just threw a plane at it, and that's what happened. It's going backwards now. Well, there you go. That was just a little bit behind the scenes of some of the stuff that goes on in making my sim. I hope that was interesting for you, and I'll catch you next video. Bye for now. Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.